All right. So welcome to our December holiday seminar, right before the holidays. We're doing it a bit earlier this month. You can't see me because my connection's bad, so this will, at least you can hear me, hopefully. But today we have Josh Miller, who I'm super excited to have you on, Josh, because we did a podcast with you and you're just, I don't know, you're refreshing and fascinating and pretty much talking about why resolutions are a waste of time and how to make real change in our life. I mean, you wrote a book called Call Bullshit, Live Your Life, Not Someone Else's. So I think this is just really suiting, very topical for this time of year when everyone's questioning their self and what life is and having existential crises. So anyways, our seminars, we do them once a month, and they're with thought leaders like yourself. And so we're just going to dive in and welcome to our seminars.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sam, for having me. I think this topic in particular is so critical. Obviously, people are talking about this right now because what I found is that come December, right, we do a couple of things everybody does during the holidays, regardless of your religion, race, where you are. You're typically celebrating something. There's usually one holiday in there. And what I found is that derails us from everything that we said we wanted to do in January, right? And what's interesting is if you actually look at it from a calendar year, we set up these expectations through the month of normalist December that are not realistic. And we say, come January, I'm going to make this 180-degree change, which again, not realistic. And then we have expectations, which again are not realistic, that come February 1st, we will see some sort of change. And why? Because, well, all these statistics say that in 30 days, we should have new habits and so on and so forth. And all of that sounds like, okay, it's plausible, right? But then let's fast forward. Come February, you haven't hit your goal. So what do? You either abandon them, you find people in your life that will enable whatever kind of conversation you're having to justify why you should abandon them, or maybe you double down and say, you know what, I'm going to keep going forward, right? Which sounds, again, really possible, really positive. Again, the challenge is come March 1st, you realize I'm still not where I want to be, and so on and so forth. And then comes the springtime. Oh, summer's coming. I want to look good. I'm going to a bathing suit, this, that, and the other thing. So we're going to reevaluate our goals and double, triple down now. And it goes on and on and on. And it's just this cycle. And the thing that people seem to forget, and this is the thing I talk a lot about, is it's not so much the goal that you're setting. It's the support system and the structure that you have designed or not designed in your life that's going to help you get there. And one of the biggest challenges people face when they set these intentions, resolutions, whatever you want to call it, and I'll get to that in a moment, is that they've created this big lofty goal, which may or may not be plausible or probable, but they don't have a support system that will enable them to get there. And typically what we do is we come up with these great ideas, right? That's the what. And then when it comes to the how, that's the weakest link. And we look around our lives and we say, all right, well, I've got friends, I've got family, they're going to support me. I'm going to tell them. It's either over, a beverage, it's over dinner, it's over the holidays. We get excited, but we really haven't done any work yet. So it's inspiring, possibly. And what happens is as soon as we hit a bump in the road, we go to those people and we look for them to save us. And the challenge is that they're not equipped to do that. And this goes back to the support structure I was just talking about. When you're creating a goal, you have to make sure that the support structure that is equally, if not bigger, exponentially, going to support that goal to the finish line. And what happens is that it requires you to actually look outside of your normal influence or comfort zone of friends and look for people that may not be first or high on your list, but ultimately somebody who's accountable, right? So what I always tell people is look for people that actually inspire you. Look for people that have achieved the thing that you want to achieve, because there's something that they did that you could learn from instead of trying to figure it out on your own. So maybe I'll just pause there for a moment and see if there's any questions, because I think I just said a lot. And to me, this makes perfect sense, but I think it's one of the areas where a lot of people, we don't talk about it. So we just talk about set goals, and we don't talk really about how to succeed on that.
And Ines, I feel like you have a question. Or no?
There's something in the chat box here.
No, I was posting your link to your book.
Okay, cool.
Um,
Yeah, so here's essentially what I tell people to do, and I wrote about it in my book, and it works. I do it myself, is I come up with the goal, right? And a lot of this is common sense to many people. And I use the acronym that many people use, which is a SMART goal, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, right? This is something a lot of people know. But then what I do is I look at all the people in my life. I make a list of all the people that are currently in my sphere, my orbit of influence. And I write down their names and I write down who they are for me. And what's going to happen when you exhaust this list is you're going to see very clearly, do you have the right people, right, that are going to help you get that goal? Are you have the right people that are going to help you succeed? And if you don't, then the real question you want to focus on is no longer the goal, but the support structure. Because the support structure is what's going to enable you to succeed. So people spend so much time talking about the goal and they don't really talk about the support structure. The second piece, and this is something I talk about all the time, is I wish people would stop making resolutions and actually start thinking about evolution. And I know that's like a tongue-in-cheek play on words, but if you really think about it, we take resolutions and really what we're saying is, okay, come this day, arbitrary day, I'm going to stop doing this. And we all know the science proves that it's not sustainable. You cannot stop cold turkey on a lot of different things, habits, behaviors, mindsets, so on and so forth. And so instead of talking about a resolution, you should really be talking about more of an intention. Because an intention is more empowering, right? You don't put all the pressure on yourself. You're basically saying, I have an intention to change X. I have an intention to create Y. When you say that, my commitment in this year is this, it's very black and white. And I know for some, it can be very empowering and it can be very motivating. But for the majority of people who, for example, on January 1st, join a gym, on February, I think it's, I don't know, I want to say 10th or 15th, 80% or some odd of those gym memberships never go to use because people literally give up. They fail. And why do they fail? Because they had a great goal in mind, but they didn't have a support structure that was going to hold them accountable to get to the gym every day. So instead of saying, hey, what's my resolution? I would say, hey, what's my intention? The intention is a softer way of saying, hey, I'm empowered. I'm looking to change something, but I'm not going to put this heavy weight on my shoulders and say, by this date, I've got to change. Because that pressure is not going to work. Yeah.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah, of course.
Because intention, so it's really funny you're talking about intention. I literally just taped a podcast where the entire thing was like talking about intention. So
yeah.
I feel like there's something in the air. But people say speaking committed language. And
yeah.
I wonder if the word intention, is intention committed enough? Or is it sort of like maybe is intention, part of that committed circle of language?
Yeah. So it's really, Sam, I love that you brought that up, right? So there's being intentional and then you could fill in the blank, right? So a lot of people are not intentional. That's just a fact, right? We think we are, but we're not. And I want to draw a fine line here between being intentional and being accountable, because I believe that being intentional feeds into accountability. But to your point, just what you said, intentional in your speaking. This is something else that I think absolutely is critical and fundamental for people's success and happiness, and something that we fail miserably all the time. It's the words we choose when we're talking about creating a new version of ourselves, whether that is a resolution, a commitment, an intention, whatever you want to call it. So for example, it's what I call bankrupt language, right? A lot of times we speak in ways that are simply disempowering. We don't use words like I will or I choose to. And for many, it's because, well, that sounds weird, or I don't want to overpromise. And we have some sort of story or aversion to it. But the reality is when you empower yourself by how you speak, you show up differently. More importantly, the people around you will start to listen to you differently. And you'll actually listen to yourself differently. So the difference, like this is the one I use all the time, is people always talk about I'll try, right? And we all know from Star Wars, the Yoda says there is no try. It's do or do not. And it's funny that that mythical character has become so popular in pop culture, but also in just kind of coaching. It really is true. If you think about it, there is no try. You're either going to do something or you're not going to do it. And the difference is really what's the intention. Because the intention to try something, it's kind of like I may not, I'm giving myself an out. And if you tie this back to making resolutions, we all try to lose weight. We all try to make more money. We all try to find the one we want to love. But the question is, are you really trying? What's the intention behind it? You know, it's another word that people use all the time when it comes to making resolutions and then them not happening. They say, well, why didn't it happen? They go, oh, it was too hard. Well, what if hard didn't exist? Just think about it for a moment. What if the word hard was something that was made up? Because you can't go to a store or to a restaurant and say, hey, I'd like to order the hard with a side salad, right? That doesn't exist. Hard is something we made up. Tables are hard. Concrete is hard. But our desires in life, are they truly hard? Because right there is a word we use all the time, and people just jump on it. Oh, yeah, you're right. That was really hard. But how is it hard? What's a more empowering version of that? So I'm always talking to my clients and saying, hey, how can you change the language? If you change the language, you will change the direction of your life. So instead of hard, what's a more empowering version of that? And many times people say, well, challenging. And I love that, because challenging, right? At least challenging has the idea that, hey, it's possible. If something's hard, it's like the perfect excuse to say, oh, you know what, I tried, but it was hard. And there's those two words again that love to hang out together, try and hard. And they are just laden. They're everywhere in our vocabulary. And we enable each other every day with the language we're using because, to bring it back to that word, we're not being intentional. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes great sense. I'm like taking notes while you're writing. I love the whole thing about changing the language, changes how you show up, changes the direction. It's so key.
Yeah, I mean, there was a quote that I was reading this morning. I think it said, there's a difference between trying and failing to try. If you really think about it, right? If you try and failed versus failing to try, it's kind of a play on words. Failing to try is not even trying. It's not even attempting it. And I think a lot of people have confused and collapsed the two, because we become a society in a world where it's instant gratification. Well, I tried, didn't work out, I'm on to the next thing. I was just reading a statistic actually this morning that said in 2000, our attention span as human beings, I think it was around 13 seconds. In 2008, or 2000, excuse me, that was in 2000. In 2013, I think it was 8 seconds. And goldfish has the attention span of 9 seconds. So a goldfish can actually hold its attention span longer than humans. Think about that for a moment, because it to me, it was kind of like shocking, right? And, you know, why is that important when you talk about, you know, intentions and commitments and all that other stuff, is that we got to be realistic about what we're setting ourselves up for. And I think more times than not, when I talk to one of my clients or someone's like, hey, you know, what are your goals for 2019 or the next year? They start off with these really aspirational things. And when I work with them and drill down and say, okay, well, if you had that, what's behind that? And what's behind that? And what's behind that? What we get to is something a little more tangible, something more real, something softer, just as important, just as powerful, just as meaningful, but not this big thing that almost society or whoever thinks that that's what you should have, right? We all say we want to look a certain way. We all want to have a certain amount of money, but for what end? For what reason? And I think finding your true happiness and your true commitments in life, or call it resolutions, I think it's unique to each individual person. But the challenge is, again, being clear on what you want and then having a support structure that's going to get you there. And I know I keep talking about support structure, but I think it's really important because I have failed. Like, I'm an expert in failing, Sam. Like, I have failed so much in my life. And it's because of those failures that I've learned from those failures, or most of them, and I've been able to figure out what works and what doesn't. And in essence is what I wrote in my book was nothing new. It was just the things that I know that have worked, and I've seen people use them time and time again. And one of those key things, aside from having a clear goal, is having a clear path to get there, which is the what and the how.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love listening to you. I want anyone else on the seminar, you guys have questions or want to jump in or anything you want to ask? I don't know who iPhone is, because there's no name on your screen, but Jorge, Ned, Susan, iPhone.
It's technology just listening in on us.
How long's your attention span? iPhone.
Exactly. Siri. It's really Siri.
Is it Siri? Who are you, iPhone?
I don't know.
Well, anyways, if anyone has a question or a comment, obviously this is I don't want to monopolize. I've already interviewed Josh, so I don't want to take over the conversation.
Well, look, I'll go back to saying something I said earlier, which was around the difference between, making resolutions versus evolutions. I think the distinction there is that people forget that we are human beings who are evolving, right? And the word resolute is very finite. When you're making a resolution, you're putting an immense pressure on yourself to change in a period of time. For most people, that's not realistic. Some people plot it out and actually have a plan, and that's different, and that's great. But the majority of people fail, right? The percentage is 80-90% of resolutions fail. So again, instead of making resolutions, think about evolutions. How can you evolve? What are you currently doing? And this is something I think is such a powerful exercise we just don't spend time doing, is taking stock in what are we really good at already, right? People are really good, and society does a great job of pointing out all of our shortcomings and downfalls, like where are the gaps, because that's how they sell us stuff, right? It's a marketing thing. But we don't take time to actually think about what are the things that we're actually good at. So another thing that would be really great for people in the month of December before venturing into, hey, these are the things I want to do in 2019, is just take out a sheet of paper, create a list of, hey, what are my, my habits or my strengths? What are the things that I'm naturally good at? The things that I enjoy doing? Because those are the things that you want to optimize. Those are the things that you want to build upon. Then you want to look at the things that no longer serve you. And those can be people, places, as well as technology. So if you think about it for a moment, what are the people in your life that are not giving, right? They're just taking. And this goes back to something I said in my book. I wrote about doing a relationship audit, which I just completed my fourth one for the year. And, a lot of people think I'm crazy, like, oh, you're doing a relationship audit. Who are you to say who should be in your life? And I said, well, who am I not to? Seriously, think about it, right? Did somebody tell us who we are allowed to have in our lives? No, we get to say. So look at the people in your life and really take stock and say, hey, are these the people that I want in my life moving forward?
Wait, Josh, hold on. Go.
Yeah.
So you have to delve into this relationship audit. This is amazing. What are you with this person auditing them? Are they there? Or are you auditing them on your own?
No, you audit them on your own. You audit them on your own. You take a sheet of paper. It's the simplest thing, but you got to do it on paper. It doesn't really work if you use, Excel spreadsheet or PowerPoint or Microsoft Word. Just take out an old school sheet of paper, pencil and pen, draw a line down the middle. And on the left side, list out all the people in your life. And on the right side, list out who they are for you in your life. Similar to what I said at the beginning of this call, which was, about seeing who's going to help you move forward. This is part of that process. I just call it a relationship audit because what happens is, much like everything else in life, we collect a lot of stuff, right? We buy things we think we need, and then we put them aside and forget about them. Then we pick them up one day, we dust them off, and we realize, wow, I didn't know you were there the whole time. Similar to our friendships in life, right? Friends and family. We create these bonds or these relationships or these friendships or these work friendships or whatever you want to call them. And we don't tend to them. Now, sometimes we don't tend to them because they didn't bring a lot of value to our lives. And that's something to consider. But there's giving and taking. And one of the things that I've noticed in my own life is that as someone who likes to give a lot, it took me a while, and it was a hard lesson to realize that I was giving a lot more than I was getting back. And people who like to give actually need a lot in return. And that's something that's not always talked about. So if you're a big giver, you need to also receive a lot. And that's hard for some people because people don't always like to ask for things. But if you have the right people in your life, you shouldn't have to necessarily be asking for a hug or adulation or acknowledgement. It could just be something that these people are so aligned, they're so on your team, they want to help you, they love you, they want you to succeed. I always say that it's better, make sure the people, in your circle are also in your corner as your friends. And it's one of the quotes that I love the most, because you can have a lot of people surrounding you, but it's the people that are truly going to be in your corner when you need them. Those are the ones that are going to help you make those resolutions, those commitments come to life. So when you do a relationship audit, list out those people. Really think about who they are. And if you have to think for too long about who they are on the other side of that line, chances are they may not be as meaningful as a relationship or friendship or partnership or colleague or peer as you think they are, maybe even family member. Now, that doesn't mean you have to get rid of them. All I'm saying is look at how much time you spend on that relationship and what is it giving you back in return. Because if you're not getting something back, then that's probably an area where you need to focus on and say, do I want to spend as much time cultivating something that's not giving me something in return of equal or potentially more value? And when I've done this exercise over the last 10 years with my clients, it's the revelations that people have and the insights they have about how much time they were spending on people in their lives that were not giving them anything in return. And when they realized maybe I need to regress and not put so much effort and energy into that relationship and spend more time on my kids, my family, or myself, their life drastically improved. Now, what I'm saying is this is not rocket science. This is just about intentionality. Brings us right back to what we were talking about before. Where are you being intentional in your life? Because wherever you put your focus, that's what's going to show up. If you focus and are intentional on positive energy, you'll radiate that and attract more of it. But if you're focusing and being intentional on trying to cultivate a relationship that's dead or that doesn't have room to grow, then chances are you're going to stagnate in that area of your life. And that's not probably a place that you want to be.
Does anyone want to ask a question or anybody?
We'll just keep talking.
We'll just keep talking. Right. Everyone's listening. No, I think what I was going to say was that you make it sound not easy, but it's like you're so definitive about it. You're just like, yeah, just do it. And I think, and I feel like there's probably people maybe on this chat or just in general, and there are always people saying things like this, like it's not that easy, right? Like it's easier said than done type of thing.
Yeah.
So what kinds of things stand in people's way of being intentional about how they live life?
Yeah, the number one thing is the fear of failing, right? And I won't bore your listeners with, the million statistics and quotes about, falling down 7, get up 8, and this, that, and the other thing. But the reality is, if you're failing, then that means you are trying, which means you're being intentional, which means you're taking action. You're stepping outside your comfort zone. And failing is a sign of growth. And I'm speaking as someone who has failed so much in my life. I mean, unbelievable amounts of failure in my career, in my personal and professional life, in my finances, and in my well-being. I have failed over and over and over again. And, I constantly say my life is not perfect. I'm not standing on a soapbox. That's not what this is. I'm just actively engaged in all the areas that I've identified are gaps, and I'm working on them, being intentional, right? So the number one thing is the fear of failure. People don't want to raise their hand, probably similar to how people may not want to ask questions right now. It's in common nature to feel insecure or scared of looking bad or dumb or anything of that nature. So it's the fear of failure really keeps people back. And then the second is, which is very much tied to the first one, is, did I get it right? Or am I doing it right? Or any variation of that. Those are the two that keep people from really stepping outside and attempting new things. Because we are creatures of comfort. We want things that are familiar. We want to stay in our little comfort zones. And we have built strategies to keep us safe and to keep us in a place where really no one is going to rock our boat, right? And that may feel good, but that's not living. That's managing. That's coping. It's not thriving. It's existing. So what I would tell people is that if there's something that you want to achieve and you know it, right? It's the thing that keeps you up at night. It may be the thing that you actually don't talk to anybody about. And maybe even the thing that you cry about in your, private time. I would just pull out a sheet of paper and I would write down, what is that thing? Because as soon as you get it out of your head, it starts to live somewhere else. And that's part of the issue. But that's an easy thing for people to do. I would say the bar is pretty low in terms of just writing it down. Okay. Second thing is write out that list of people and find somebody that you could share that dream, that goal, that vision, whatever that is, with that at least one person. What you're doing here is now you're taking it from your head, right, onto paper, and then from paper to someone else. And you're essentially transferring that idea so it starts to take some life. And also what you're doing at that same time is you're creating an accountability structure. So now somebody else knows about it. Now, if you pick the right person, and I know I say the word right, but if you pick somebody that's really wants you to win in life, they're going to come back to you and be like, hey, Sam, you said you wanted to do that thing. Where are you with that thing? Or you said you wanted to do this, but I haven't heard you talk about it. Or, hey, I'm really excited. I'd love to help you with blank, blank, blank. So that's one very easy way, and I say easy, to get people going, which is if you have the idea, it's time to get it out of your head, put it on some paper, then from paper, transfer it and translate it to somebody else. And hope that that person can start to hold you accountable. Because the thing is, if no one's holding you accountable, there's no reason for you to take action. Zero. You will not take action. You may think you may take some action, but at some point, you're going to stop. And why are you going to stop? Because it goes back to the two things I said before. The fear of failure, right? Or the fear of looking bad, and not asking for help.
You just said something that triggered something I wanted to say, but then I actually just forgot it.
You're going to make me speak more?
Yeah, if you keep talking, I swear I'll remember.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I have a coach, right? I've been working with my coach for 18 years. And
wow, consistently?
Yeah.
Or do you take breaks?
Consistently. I had a coach for 2 years first. So 20 years I've had a coach, but for 2 years it was someone different. Then I found another coach and I've been working with her for 18 years. And, you know, what I like to tell people is the only difference between me and you is that I've been working on myself longer. That's all. I'm not perfect. I've got so much shit I'm dealing with all the time, but they're things that I understand what I'm dealing with, meaning I've identified them, right? So it's not just showing up as stress or drama or problems. It's showing up as like, oh, I've got X, Y, and Z because I know what I'm working on. The second thing is when I don't know something, I don't want people to think, oh, well, I just raise my hand and, you know, people come to the rescue. No, I sit there, I stew, I get upset, I get frustrated. But I also recognize that when that happens, I've got outlets to deal with those things. Go to the gym, talk to my wife, right? I have a kind of a mastermind group that I've created that it's kind of like my board of directors. And I encourage everyone to find their board of directors. And these are the people I go to. I can go to them at 3:00 in the morning consecutively, and they will be there for me. And I'm also part of other mastermind groups of like-minded people that I know very well. And that's incredibly rewarding because it's not only gives me the opportunity to be of service to somebody else, which is inspiring and gives something back to me, but it's also inspires me to think about the ideas that I'm working on and get that support structure in place. So, you know, I think when it comes down to it, you're going to be afraid. And anyone who tells you just fight through the fear, that's just a load of shit. If you're afraid because you've got an idea of something you want to achieve in the new year, then that's an amazing thing. You should hold on to that feeling because that means you're alive. It's important to you. And it's probably something that you're most passionate about. So that's a good feeling. If you feel nothing, that's a bad feeling. So you want to capitalize on that. And I'll go back to what I said before. Just take whatever it is that thing is that's inspiring you, that you're excited about. Write it down on a sheet of paper so it's no longer living in your head. Because by the way, the conversations in your head are going to derail you every single second of the day. And then go find somebody you can share that with that you think is going to help you and hold you accountable. If you do those things, you will already be ahead of majority of the population going into 2019.
So, okay, I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to go to before. You're talking about people holding you accountable, which is completely true, and I agree. The thing is that in order for people to hold you accountable, people have to communicate to the people in their lives, right? And to have that support system that you're talking about, you need to tell those people that they're your people and you want them to be accountable. But people, we don't do that enough. I mean, at least So that's the thing. How do you get past that barrier of not telling people enough? Because they can't hold you accountable if they don't know what you're doing.
Honestly, is you got to just do it. I wish there was some really fancy, articulate way of explaining it to you, Sam, and to the listeners, but there isn't. Because anything that anyone tells you, including myself, all the roads are going to lead you to taking the action of going and asking somebody for help. You know, there's this, the expression that's used a lot is you're better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission, or beg for forgiveness versus ask for permission. And sometimes it's used in the wrong context, but other times I think it's a brilliant one. And this may be one of those areas or contexts where I think it works, right? If you wait too long, the time is going to pass you by. The opportunity will pass you by. And honestly, maybe that person may pass you by. So there's a lot of things that could motivate people to take the action. You know, for me, it was experiencing the loss of my father at a young age, and the concept of time radically shifted. And I realized that time is not infinite. It's something that goes very quickly. And I learned at a young age that I don't want to live a life of regrets. Now that sounds really powerful, or it can sound like a very powerful statement, but the reality is I don't know how to go about doing that. And one of the things I've learned is simply to ask for help, raise your hand, and go talk to people. You cannot be successful if you are living inside of your own little, bubble, basically is what it is. And so, I would tell people that if there is something that you really want in your life, there's something that you're playing for, depending on what it is, you need to start getting in conversations with people. Tell somebody, there's got to be one person you trust. And I would start with them, because what you don't want to do is go tell somebody who's not going to give you any kind of love or reciprocation or acknowledgement. It's just going to build the conversation and the evidence that, hey, this is not a safe thing to do. I should not be raising my hand. I'm going to go back to, playing in my own little world. No, go find a loved one, a spouse. Go find somebody that is going to love you up, a best friend, a family member. Start there so you can build up the confidence that it's okay to reach out to people and ask for help. But if you don't do that, the probability of whatever resolution, commitment, intention you have is just not going to come to fruition.
Yeah, I love what you just said. Love you up. Ricardo, welcome. No, Ricardo, you can turn your video on. It's just because I have bad bandwidth and I don't know what happened to everyone else. Yeah. Do you want to ask questions? It's just been me and Josh back and forth, but do you want to, I know you just hopped on, but anything you want to ask or we're talking about a million different things.
As we normally do.
That's good, great. I'll just wait a little bit to get on the train and then start asking questions.
Okay, we won't put you on the spot. But yeah, no, I think that's a good point. The whole, yeah, what did you say? Asking up. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you know this, Sam, people love to make things very complicated and create these formulas and these strategies on how to win at life. The most successful people do this. The smartest people don't do that. When you break it all down, it comes down to how do you define? I'm looking at Ricardo. I'm just looking at you because I see somebody on my screen, right? Figure out what makes Ricardo the happiest person. When you are at your best and when you are at your happiest, right? Where are you? Who are you with? What are you wearing? Right? Are you eating food? What does the environment look like? Just get back to the basics. Because what happens is when we're not clear on what we want, we literally just go look at somebody else and say, wow, I think that's what I want. And then we start creating a life or going after things that honestly are not true to who we are. And we waste a lot of time and a lot of money. And then we get frustrated. And we wake up one day and we realize I either never got it or I achieved it and I'm not happy. So it starts within. It starts with asking yourself just some basic questions. What's going to make me happy, right? Where am I when I'm the happiest? Who do I want to be with, either currently or in the future? For a lot of people, it has nothing to do with money. For some people, it does. But I think getting clarity around what you want before, and this is intentional, right? It's perfect. We go back to that word, Sam. Being intentional about what you want before setting on the path of trying to achieve it. Because that is the problem inherently that people face as we go back to the beginning of our call today, which is really just around, making resolutions or commitments for the new year. A lot of the times people fail is because they never really wanted it to begin with. When people say that they want to lose weight, because that's a very popular one, if you ask people, okay, well, if you lost weight, what would be possible? Oh, well, I'd be able to, fit in my clothes better. Okay, great. And what would that do? Well, that would make me happier. Okay. And so what does that mean? Well, my self-esteem would be better. Okay, great. So what does that mean? Well, then I could go to the swimming pool or the beach. Great. And what would that? Well, I love to swim. Awesome. And, swimming is really good exercise. Great. And and so like, if you just keep drilling down, you really get to what is the thing that is going to drive them to stay committed. It's not going to the gym. Nobody likes going to the gym. I've been going to the gym for my whole life, and I hate going to the gym. But if you ask me why I go, it's because I want to be around long enough to play with my kids, right? To be around and have an active life with my wife. That's why I go to the gym, to stay healthy so that I can be an active participant in my life. I don't go to the gym because it's some cool status thing. And I think if you really take the time to drill down when you set when you set let's say a resolution for the new year, be intentional and start drilling down and asking yourself, okay, what is that going to bring me? What's that going to bring me? And when it's all said and done, you'll really get to the core of why you're setting that intention or that resolution. And that's going to help you move forward. I know Simon Sinek always talks about the why. And I think it's important to understand that, why are you doing something? Because if you're not clear on the why, the what and the how is just going to go off the rails. You still there, Sam?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I was like, Ricardo, now do you want to jump in?
I like when you talk about the why. I've been reading Simon as well. And, can you talk a little bit more about this thing of being intentional? Like, yeah. I know you said about drilling down and getting clear what you want from those things, and that will push. But is there anything else in terms of how you program these activities or these tasks when you talk about being intentional?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you, Ricardo. So a couple of things. So intentional is the mindset, right? Intentional is not the action per se. So you want to adopt the mindset of being intentional, right? The behavioral mindset of being intentional. But to your point, if I hear you correctly, is how does that show up from an action standpoint? Because you can't fly out of the gate with intentionality and not have any direction. So if you just look at, I'm just going to use this for example, let's just say 30 days, right? Because it typically takes 30, 45 days to create some new habit or condition mindset. What I work with my clients on doing, and this is nothing that most people don't know. It's just things that people have forgotten. So here's what I would do, Ricardo. Let's say you have a goal that you want to accomplish in 2019. It doesn't have to be in February. It could be at December. What I would do is get a sheet of paper. And if you notice, this entire time I've been saying get a sheet of paper. I'm not saying pull out an app or pull out your computer. Get a sheet of paper. The reason is because there's muscle memory and anchoring to your brain when you actually write things down. You can always transfer that, but just start there. So what I would do is I would work backwards. Okay, this is kind of counterintuitive. So on the top of the sheet of paper, what you want to do is write your SMART goal, right? This is how it's going to be. By February 1st of 2019, I being Ricardo, will blank, right? So you want to make it specific, measurable, achievable, and then have some sort of quantifiable, not necessarily qualified, but like quantifiable goal, right? Then you want to drill down, working backwards, top down. So if you're saying that by February 1st, you will lose 10 pounds, I'm not saying you need to lose 10 pounds, Ricardo, you look beautiful. I'm just saying if that's the case, right? So what you want to do is work backwards. Think about it. So you want to then use the next line below is the week before February. So let's just say it's January 21st, and then January 14th, January 7th, then January 1. So right now what you've done is you've created basically 4 short little sprints or 4 like milestones leading into the big goal. And so what I have clients do is look at those short sprints. And at the end of each sprint, what you want to do is have some sort of goal. So if you know you want to lose 10 pounds, each week, in theory, if my math is correct, if you've got 5 weeks or 4 weeks, you want to lose 2.5 pounds each week. Now that's more manageable. That's a bite-sized chunk. Your brain can understand it. It's more inspiring, and it feels more attainable. If you say, I want to lose 10 pounds by February 1st, that sounds great. Most people will be like, yeah, you can do it, Ricardo, go for it. And then as soon as those people go away, you're thinking, I don't know how to get there. I'll start in a week from now. I'll start in another week from now. And then science is going to dictate there's no way to lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks. So if you make them short sprints, 2.5 pounds, that's totally manageable. Now you've broken it down. Now here's the most important thing that most people fail. Instead of trying to create some sort of action plan for every single milestone, just focus on the milestone that is closest to you. Just think about that for a moment, right? So if you know that my goal is to lose 2.5 pounds by the first week in January, what do I need to do? And this is where you start writing out, what are the things I need to do? I need to take stock in my food. I need to buy new food. I need to get friends that can help me, support me with eating. I need to prepare my meals at night. I need to get 7 hours of sleep versus 5. I need to join a gym, whatever it may be, right? And this is where it starts to become like this 30,000 foot idea or concept to actual practical things that you can knock off. And so what happens is after you achieve these short sprints, and this is the final piece that I love to tell clients about, you want to reward yourself. Seriously, this is what we don't do. We don't reward ourselves. You want to attach a reward, right? It's the carrot and the stick. You want to make sure that there's a reward at the end. Now, the reward cannot be chocolate cake, and it cannot be bagels and pizza and all that stuff, because obviously that's counterintuitive to losing the 2.5 pounds. But it could be something else that's going to inspire you to move forward to the next one. Does that make sense? This works. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I like when you started telling us to connect with the feelings or the goals that we're going to have once we achieve this small project, right? Mm-hmm. It should drive all the effort and make us moving forward. That was good advice. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. When I talk to people in the corporate or technology world, they're like, oh, this is a waterfall technology. I'm like, it's not waterfall. It's being more agile, right? You really want to be nimble, right? And but you got to reward yourself. And I can't stress enough, Ricardo, and to everyone else who's going to listen, make sure you have people in place that's going to help you week in and week out. Because here's what's typical. You hit your first week, you feel great. Going into the second week, one of two things is going to happen. You're going to take your foot off the gas, or you're going to put your foot on the gas so fast that you're going to rush to the next reward. And in theory, that sounds great, but in reality, you'll probably hit some bumps in the road. It's inevitable, because when you start to up your game, when you level up in life, the universe is going to challenge you. Just think about it. Anytime you've wanted something so bad in life, the universe always throws obstacles in your way. That's by design. It says, hey, if you really want this, Ricardo, I'm going to make you step outside your comfort zone and grow and learn and achieve it. And if you think about the things that you've achieved in your life that are really meaningful to you, you probably, if you look hard enough, you probably had to overcome at least one or more obstacles to obtain that person or that job or whatever it is. So you can do it. You just got to work for it.
Can I? No.
Please go ahead, sir. I just wanted to ask about, he kind of mentioned it, but I think when you're going through these changes, like and stuff, it's okay to expect changing the environment around us, right? You mentioned friends, you mentioned different mindset, but do those tricks that make you do things that you are not used to. For instance, you mentioned in exercises like go to sleep with your sneakers right beside the bed. So once you wake up and then you go running and stuff like that. So changing environment is also a thing to expect, right?
Well, change in environment, absolutely. So any kind of change in your life is going to require a change in your environment. It's funny you said sleep with your sneakers by the side of your bed. When I first got committed to exercise, I actually slept with my sneakers on and my gym clothes on. I'm not exaggerating. Right, exactly. Because I needed that. I knew that if I had to wait 1 or 2 or 5 seconds to put my sneakers on, I would roll right back onto my bed and fall back asleep and hit the snooze button. So you want to set up your environment that it will be conducive to you reaching your goals. So if exercise is your thing, make sure your clothes are laid out, or sleep in your clothes. Make sure they're clean, but sleep in them, right? Have your coffee ready, have your car ready, have whatever you need ready so you literally can walk out of your bed or your room, whatever it is, get and go. Because if you have to wait more than 5 seconds to think about it, you're not going to wind up doing it. You'll find a reason. And the other trick, by the way, is make sure your alarm clock is far enough away from your bed that you have to get up to shut it off. Because if you can get out of bed, chances are you can get out the door. It's a really good point. Sam, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, and then yeah, we can wrap it up. I mean, we can talk to you for hours, but no, I love you.
I love you too. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy talking to you.
Really a breath of fresh air. No, the one thing, it's interesting you just said, my coach said to me, you're talking about how if you really want something, the universe puts obstacles in your way. And it's interesting that because my coach said to me a bit back, the universe has a way of giving you what you really, really want.
Yep.
I just went through an experience, not going to get into it on this, but pretty much there was something I really, really wanted. And I ended up getting it through an insanely convoluted, ridiculous, very challenging and stressful series of events.
Yeah.
And her words resonated, saying if you want something, the universe has a way of giving it to you. And I was like, yeah, the universe gave it to me after X, Y, and Z happened. And then you say this, and that resonates as well. So I guess,
there's no accident.
Give you what you want, or do you need to go through some obstacles to get it?
Well, consider that it doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you need. And there's a big difference because we don't always know what we need. We think we need to, I'm just putting this out there, we think we need to lose weight. But in reality, what we need is a stronger, healthier relationship to ourselves. Because when that is in place, people will love you because you love yourself, and so on and so forth. So, we could go off on another tangent, right? I just believe there's no accidents in life. We get exactly what we need sometimes when we don't know we need it. And that's the beautiful piece. But none of that, just to wrap this up, right? None of that matters if we're not being intentional. Because if you're not being intentional, you're going to miss all the signs that the universe is giving you to make some sort of change in your life. So you got to be present, be intentional, and then look for what's going on around you. And, and the last thing I'll say is that you literally get to say how your life is going to go, even in the face of what the universe gives you. You get to choose every moment. Are you going to go left? Are you going to go right? Are you going to be a victim, or are you going to be the victor of your life? It's your choice.
Well, on that amazing inspirational note, does anyone else have anything to ask or say before we go? Don't all try and talk at once.
Mr. iPhone, Mrs. iPhone.
iPhone left us.
Oh, Siri.
But
wait for Alexa. Yeah.
Well, really, Josh, thank you so much.
Of course.
Amazing. You're always really, it's like everything comes out of your mouth is just insightful and inspirational. And
I appreciate it.
If people want to find you, if they want to get your book, if they just want to get in touch, they go.
Yeah, sure. So my website, joshhmiller.com/book. You can find me on Instagram at Coach Josh Miller, or on Twitter at Coach JHM. But my website has all of my contact information. And, I can't thank you enough, Sam, because every time I talk to you, I feel like, I don't know, kindred spirit. It's just very, very easy. And Ricardo, I wish you all the best. New Year. Yeah.
And for everyone else who joined the call, it's really thank you for joining, and everyone else who's watching this. I will fix my bandwidth so that I'm not just a name on a screen, but we do these seminars monthly. You should join. They're great. We have amazing guests like Josh and others. So definitely take part in them. And Josh, thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And we'll talk in the new year for sure, Sam.
I have no doubt.
Okay.